Rome is the most amazing city. It is my belief that everyone should visit the Eternal City sometime in their lifetime. So much of our culture, so much of our world is shaped by what happened in Rome. And you will have the opportunity to see it in the most unbelievable, most intimate, most emotional way possible if you join Tiffany and me on a trip to Rome. We're taking a small group of Bittersweet Life listeners with us to Rome next year, October 5th to the 11th. You can find more details at thebittersweetlife.net or send us an email, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you all the information. We're going to be doing a wide announcement about the registration soon. And given the limited tickets, if this is something you want to do, you might just jump on it immediately. thebittersweetlife.net. Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katie Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell. Still in Rome, although Tiffany is away today, and I'm joined by two very special people. One who you will recognize from an earlier episode number 527. I think I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Who are you?
I am Brie like the cheese, Ripley like believe it or not. I moved to Rome sight unseen.
Episode 527. Brie moved to Rome sight unseen. Okay, and who are you?
I'm Brie's other half. This is Ryan Sparks. I don't have nearly as quippy of an introduction, but I'm very excited to be here.
So if you haven't listened to Brie's original episode, it is worth hearing before this one. Not that this one won't stand alone, but we interviewed Brie back when she first arrived in Rome. She's from Seattle, moved to Rome for a job without ever having been here before. And where we left it last time, Ryan, you had yet to arrive when I was interviewing her, although the episode did end with your arrival. So maybe I'll start with you, actually, since we haven't heard from you before. Do you want to take us back to your impressions of that first arrival, what it felt like to finally get here?
Oh, the first arrival, I think you took the audio clip, right? I'm not sure if you can hear the cats meowing in the background.
Oh, you could hear the cats meowing, yes.
Okay, then, yeah, that's an accurate depiction of what my arrival was mostly like, because traveling with two cats for 16 hours with a layover in Frankfurt, do it maybe a few times in your life, definitely not more than twice. It went fine, but I was pretty haggard when I was rolling in. But I think the first things that I remember about walking into the apartment, seeing you again, Brie, for the first time in 6 weeks, was the smell. It was very pleasant. Rome isn't always a pleasant smelling place, but at that time, this is like late March, and it was like a nice temperature, a really like crisp air and like a smell in the air. And I was like, oh, I just get to be here now? Okay. Mm-hmm. Coming from Seattle, it has its own version of like a beautiful, fresh kind of breeze. But on that day, it was really, really nice smelling in Rome is what I remember when I first walked in.
We had talked to Brie how she was feeling during that first kind of often awkward month. When I think back to when I moved to Rome, I think about myself feeling like very awkward and out of place. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. How did you feel in that first month when you first get here?
Oh, it was so awkward and out of place. Like, I'm a creature of habit. I moved from the East Coast to Seattle when I was younger, but then stayed in Seattle for 10 years. I like to stay put, to know where I am, to know how to get places, to know the local shops to go to. And starting over, not knowing the language when just getting an espresso feels daunting. The first couple of days, it felt very daunting and felt like kind of being an alien in a new land. Again, even though a lot of things are made to be pretty easy. You toss a euro on the counter and you get your espresso. It's not complicated, but it felt very daunting at the time.
Well, Brie moved here. She got the job in Rome, so you decided to come along. And you have a job working abroad, but because she comes with a purpose, like a specific purpose, you're both here because she got a job. How did that make you feel?
It was tricky. It was, when we first heard about this job offer for Brie, it was exciting because we'd always talked about living somewhere else and abroad if we could. And then the moment happens where it's like, oh, we could right now. And that was intimidating because it's not in my control where those things go, and it's only partially in her control where those things go. It's jobs don't always work out, and to peg your life on one is a new thing for me. When I moved in the past, it wasn't for a job. I would find the job when I get there. And then arriving, like you said, like she's the one with the office to go to, with the place to go. They all speak English at that office. She's got a place and a purpose. And mine was pretty abstracted. Like I was very glad that I was able to keep working remotely for my job back in the States. Time zones be damned. But it's alienating. It's a strange place to find yourself working from an apartment, mostly alone, with people you know very well back in the States, and then wondering, how do I get into the community here? And what does that even look like? Do I try to play soccer again? They're going to be so much better than me. Like, what's a way that I can start engaging with people that doesn't entail so much language and so much Italian? Because that's going to take some time.
Because that's the other thing, is similar to when Derek and I moved here, was you didn't necessarily know you were coming here. And if you live in Seattle, if you took a language at all growing up, it maybe is Spanish, French, could be an Asian language, because that's all way more practical. Well, French isn't practical, but all the rest of it's way more practical in the city of Seattle. So why would you know? You don't know Italian at all. And then you come here.
Yeah, and I did take some Spanish when I was growing up, so you get some of the roots. That actually does remind me of a good story where I went to an in-person language learning class for about a week. Only couldn't do more of it because it was every day and very intensive, and I thought I'd be able to pull it off, and then work made that not possible. But the point was that while I was doing that, it was just me and then probably 10 or 12 Chinese high schoolers all learning Italian. And for them, they are starting from such a different place to learn Italian. And it was actually pretty humbling, where I was like, I have so much of a head start towards this with the Spanish background and even just the English background, the same alphabet, all of it, like this. Yeah. And they were so brave and cool watching them go through it. And we were kind of at the same level, because I came in like a week through the course. They'd already been at it for a week, kind of at the same level, but just like watching how hard they were trying. And I was like, I have no excuse. I should be able to do this. But but with all that said, like, it's still super challenging. Yeah. I was describing earlier to Brie, I was like, I feel like we're really good in retail settings, restaurants, getting by. But if we're both working and speaking in English all day for work, you're not going to really immerse in other types of language and more conversational stuff unless you take some very intensive lessons. It's going to take some time.
Well, you're nodding a lot. Do you have anything you want to add?
I'm still not good at speaking Italian. I guess that's as much as I have to add. I mean, I do have the luxury of working for a global organization where English is the primary language, and it does make me feel like I'm missing out a lot. Like I'm not really adjusting into my, community, my neighborhood. Most of the people in our neighborhood, we live in a very Roman neighborhood, only speak Italian. And so you go, sto ancora imparando italiano. You say, like, I am still learning Italian. And then you're like, do you speak English? And they're like, un po. Yeah, like just a little. And then they proceed to try to speak to you in English. And you're like, I can't like make this connection with you that I want to make. Like my butcher and, the amazing woman who hems my pants. I want to have a relationship with them, and they know me, and we have that connection, but it's very surface level, and so I kind of just feel like I'm missing out a lot on like these deeper connections.
And yet you have managed to find a woman who can hem your pants, which some people, even that would be just like, well, I'll have pants that drag on the ground. It's fine.
As a 5'3" person, all my pants need to be hemmed basically, unless they're capris.
Right.
But yeah, and I did find her, and I mean, there's 6 different sartorias in our neighborhood, which is very lucky. Which is tailoring shops, and they're all great. They all have different services that they offer. Some are very good at doing dresses from scratch. Like if you want a whole wardrobe from scratch, you have to hit up the lady right next to our apartment. But if you just want your pants hemmed for €5 a pop, you got to go to My Lady in San Giovanni.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so you've been here about 10 months. We just went out for lunch, and you said you've been here about 10 months now. So, I mean, your Italian's terrible. My Italian is still terrible, and I've been coming here for 10 years. I mean, you are finding your way, though. Like when you think back to like that early month, that first month that you were both here, your first month alone, his first month as soon as he got here. How do you think that you've changed in that intervening 9 months, so to speak?
I think that we stop and feel like very grateful and try to really incorporate more gratitude. Like there are very hard days when nothing works and everything just feels like it's, oh man, that is so Rome right now. Like you're at the train station and the train's never going to come. And then you get an email, because I work for an organization that sends out these mass emails because we're mostly expats that are like, well, the trains have just stopped running. If you've been at the train station for 2 hours, they're not going to come today. Or, metro strike tomorrow. And, or like, it takes way too long to drive home from wherever we're coming from. And it just is impossible to get into Trastevere Old Town when you're coming from, any neighborhood outside. And it's really hard on metro or public transit, but we can stop and be like, but we get to go. Like we get to be there and we get to look around and everywhere kind of looks like a painting and is so extraordinary. And those moments where we just get to like pause and be like, the food tastes really good here. And I really enjoy just being and listening and having those moments of just pause and just feeling really grateful like that. I think we're able to do that now. And in the beginning, it was like we had that honeymoon phase here. And then got really frustrated at some point because we were like, how does any of this work? But now we're really trying to incorporate more gratitude. And I feel like it's real. It's resonant. Like we get to be here right now.
It's the whole experience is reminding me that, like I said earlier, I'm a creature of habit, right? Like I don't, back in Seattle, I wasn't someone who was signing up for new clubs and starting that new sport or learning that new language for fun. Because I don't like feeling like a beginner is what it sounds like a thing that you should strive to say. Like I'm a lifelong learner. I'm not, I don't like it and it's uncomfortable. And so it's been interesting going through this phase because I can see some like grace in there of like, if you are just uncomfortable for a while, if you can find enough safety and security such that like, that's not threatening, it's just annoying. If I'm just talk less in general, and my day-to-day word count is probably way down compared to living in Seattle, I think it's probably a good thing for me. It almost reminds me like I love to hike, and that's very little speaking, very little conversing. I hike alone often because I really like the solitude. I'm learning how to do that slowly, learning how to do that in a city and in a place surrounded by lots of people. And I wouldn't say it feels super natural yet, but I can see it. And I don't think I ever would have if Brie hadn't found this job and if Rome didn't sort of occur. And I would also say, like Brie said, on the challenging days, it's not that hard of a place to be. It's not Helsinki in the winter. This is like the food's good. It's relatively affordable as far as cities go. It's beautiful. The history's, even if you don't care about history, still slaps you in the face and it's incredible. Like, it's not a hard place to be. Just like have a glass of wine and I don't know.
Chill out.
The day will be over soon. It might already be over. Like that's
find a balcony or a rooftop and just chill out. Yeah, that's what we that's what we do. We're like, okay, we're gonna have a spritz and we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't sit inside anymore, and then probably within 30 minutes it'll be fine. Unless it's August, in which case you can't go outside for a month and it's not fine. And it actually is Helsinki in the winter. It's just
the opposite. It's the center of the sun, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's like walking into a blast furnace. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be a ceramic, like come to Rome in August.
I've always wondered what it's like to be a ceramic. I have to say.
Who amongst us has not? Yeah.
That's
I'm curious. Well, this is kind of an inside question for those of you who have never been to Seattle, which I know a lot of you listening have never been to Seattle, but you know its reputation: rainy, overcast, very gray. Just insider question: how do you feel about living in a place where, unlike looking out your window and having it be gray outside the majority of the time, how does it feel actually being somewhere where you look out the window and it's actually sunny most of the time?
It's super nice. Like, I guess it reminds me of California and different parts of California in that way when it comes to the weather. But it's nice. I think the thing in Seattle that I came to really like about the dreariness is when there's the nice weather, when there's the nice day, or even just a dreary day where it's not raining, there's an energy because it's like, I got to use this time. I got to go outside. Like, let's go to the park. Let's do something. And I clicked into a routine with that. here I've started to take it for granted. Again, all but mostly August. The weather's very pleasant. It's very nice, and you could go to that park today, but there's no like you have to start some big rush to do so. Tomorrow's probably also going to be very nice, and it feels very laid back. It feels like plans don't have to matter so much. Timing, this is the day we're going to do this thing, doesn't have to matter so much. Just roll with it, and if today feels like the right day, then we can. Like we've tried multiple little trips away from here up into Umbria or up into I guess Tuscany, almost Tuscany, and it won't work for whatever reason. We start driving, we got to turn around, or we just don't even get out the door because work's going crazy, something. And in Seattle, that would feel like more of a loss. And here, I don't know. We'll just try next weekend. Because also we don't have too much of a social routine built yet. So next weekend will be free. What else will we be doing if not trying to do this adventure again? Like it'll be fine.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything?
We have some friends now.
Some. Yeah.
We're making friends.
I mean, that's the other thing. It is like I mean, you're 10 months in. And you think like, oh yeah, I'll move somewhere 10 months in. You still might not have that many friends. You might have like next to nobody, depending on what happens. I mean, outside of work, obviously. I think of you both as very social people from what I've observed, especially of Brie because we used to work together. What has that been like for you to find, yourself go from being surrounded by a lot of people you've known for a long time to being the new people basically on the block?
I think for me, this is another sort of like, what's the phrase? The wherever you go, there you are or something, right? Mm-hmm. It's that. Like if I actually look back at that community and the friends that I had made in Seattle, most of them were from places I had worked. And then the communities that are around those people and friends of friends. I was never a great meet a stranger, become a friend guy. And that continues to be the case. So most of the friends we've made here are mostly through Brie's work because I work remotely. So no one that I work with is here. So mostly it's been Brie's work friends, and they're great. It's been really cool to continue to sort of like meet new people and who are from different places. I think most of them are not from Italy, but they're from elsewhere in Europe, from the UK. And even last night was like 10 months in was one of the first times that we went to like a party, like a proper party. Not let's go get dinner with one friend. Let's go to a large thing with lots of people. And it was so much fun. I'm not sure if you can hear the raspiness in our voices, but today was a rough day following last night because it was so much fun. And it reminded me like it just takes one or two connections or people, and then it's who they know and who that person knows and who that person knows. And it's been a while since I've done that, and it's fun. That was very exciting.
That was really cool. Yeah, I lost you at that party a couple of times. You made friends super fast. You found people in the kitchen. You were showing them the balcony that you were like, can you believe balconies like this exist? They're all over Italy.
Yeah. Are you a UN husband too? Let's chat.
There's a lot of derogatory terms for the people who come with somebody else who has a job. I mean, the most common is the trailing spouse, which is one I've never really loved. It's the one you hear the most often, is the trailing spouse, which just sounds, as a person who was the trailing spouse, it just sounds so depressing. It seems like as if Brie has you on a leash and she's dragged you across the world, and you're just like, now go sit in the corner while mom does real things, It just sounds that kind of, for me, it's always felt that way. She has a purpose, you do not. Good luck. But yet there are quote unquote trailing spouses all over the world. And so, I mean, did you find that you had anything in common with these other people that were in a similar situation to you? And did you talk about it, I guess, is another thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them are fresher into that experience than I am. Like I thought 10 months and I'm still the newbie here, but there were folks that the trailing spouse, I suppose, just arrived like last month. Mm-hmm. And you could kind of see it in his eyes. I was like, you're acting very intensely. Not unfriendly, but just like very like you need this conversation right now. And I'm like, I do too. But I could feel it. And I'm like, oh, I've been there. I know what that feels like, where you're like, I just need to talk to somebody. I need to talk to a single person about my own stuff, not about this job that my spouse has, not about any small truisms of like, oh, isn't Rome great? But just to talk to me about the experience of redoing your own experience of figuring that out. So they were all very nice. Let's just stop there on that point.
Okay. Yeah. Brie, let's flip it as I don't know what the term is for the non-trailing spouse, the leading spouse. I don't know.
Main character energy.
Main character energy. There you go. What has that been like for you to be in that role?
Well, I have to say, it does all of a sudden occur to me that it's a lot of pressure. Like I will sometimes in like really heated moments be like, oh, this is really tough that like our ability to even stay here is tied to my job. I've never had, health insurance is a big deal. Having that tied to your job, I'm not really so sure about anymore. I don't really think that maybe that's a good idea. That's me working with a lot of Europeans, sure. Being like socialized healthcare. Maybe we do that more. I don't know. It does feel kind of intense. Like I have a lot to do with my job all the time, and it's a very high pressure job, and I make a lot of connections at work. I am a social person, and a lot of the people that I work with I also go out and have aperitivo with, or I go have dinners with, hang out with on the weekend, and it matters to me that I also like, can my husband come? Can like we hang out? Oh, you invited me to a party, can I bring my husband? Like really just trying to like incorporate us, we're a team, and making sure that, we get out and we socialize, and I'm not just strapped to my computer in an office or in our apartment. And also it does feel intensely, again, just having this whole experience be tied to me doing a good job at work. That is not my favorite reality right now.
Yeah. Do you feel a different kind of responsibility for each other's emotional well-being than, say, you would have if you were... I know you're a fairly newlywed couple, but do you think it's somehow different by the fact that you're living in a foreign country?
Not for me. I don't feel... Or if I do, I feel like it's a trap. Like, the temptation is to be more involved in her work day, for you to ask me so many more questions about work than we would have, I think, back in Seattle, because we're around each other a lot more often. It's like you have been my best friend, but it's like now we're going to truly just do most of our activities always together. There's less of an independent life. And again, you build those things over time, but like I've noticed that when I start to get too closely invested in like, oh man, Brie's really just struggling with work this week, what can I do? That's great. That's very kind. That's very charming. It doesn't matter if what I do goes well for her. It doesn't matter if that helped turn it around. That's not really up to me. And I notice more codependent urges, but hopefully I'm spotting them, because I think we're at a pretty good level already of trying to help each other when one is struggling, trying to lean in, but like you don't own the outcome of the other person's feelings. You can't. You're
not, responsible for them.
Oh.
And I feel like the healthy flip of codependence is interdependence. Yeah. Like we are interdependent. We are a couple. We have a system. Like I depend on you for socialization and like care and love and affection, and I know vice versa. I also think that yes, it's become more intense as for me, living here and planning to go to the grocery store. Are we going to go to the one where we can speak to them in English? Or are we going to go to the butcher that does not speak any English? And like, a little bit more Italian than me. And so it's useful if you go with me. It was like, I'm going to go fly and buy at the grocery store. I'm going to run over in town. And then like, if I went into the grocery store, you would cook. Mm-hmm. Or like we would do something like that back at home in Seattle. And these days it's like, we're going to do almost everything together, because tackling these challenges together is easier than doing them individually. We're doing more things in a pair rather than like distributing the work, I feel like.
Yeah, correct. No, I agree with that. And what I mean is like that points out where there's existing friction of you and I working as a team, right? Which is not a lot of it, but like when you try to do anything with anyone, you have to take what they want into account. You have to, when you go to order that meat, You have to ask them, you want this cut or this cut, rather than just choosing one. And so, yes, it is easier to do those things. And I think both of us would agree that like most of this experience I wouldn't do alone. I would have said no to many, many choices along this way if I was not with you.
Yeah. Same.
But then there's also the like, when you do anything with somebody else, it's going to be a little less efficient. It's going to be a little harder. So yes, it is necessary and useful to do things together and to do the chores and the errands and all the stuff more together. But then also we're gonna bump into each other more because it's just like, we just a lot more questions.
Yeah.
Do you want this or this? Do you want this or this? What do you think about this thing first?
It's a lot of questions. I remember I did like just last week. I was like, I'm really done with the questions. Today.
No more questions.
Can we just like make some decisions and brief each other on what we decided?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that I feel like I hit a breaking point like last weekend where I was like, can we be done? Can you choose this thing? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm curious about the type of people you are. Answer for yourselves. Would you have done this if you were a single person alone?
And we're answering for like now in our lives, like
How you feel now, except Brie's not here. How Brie feels now, but you don't exist. You know, that kind of thing. You get a job opportunity and you get to move to Rome. Would you have done it?
I actually don't know what Brie's answer, so I'm very excited to hear her answer too. But my answer is no, I would not have. I really love Seattle. I really love the community I have built there. And when it comes to jobs and things, I liked the job that I had in Seattle, and I could also picture lots of other new ways I might move into different kinds of work there over time. So my answer would have been no, because like to me, I think moving abroad it's like a vision, but it wasn't one that felt practical or real, or I had any drive to do, right? I hadn't yet visited somewhere where I was like, I wish I could stay here for 6 months. I loved visiting, but I was usually glad to go home. And so for me, no way. I'm very glad that it's worked the way that it has, and we could talk after about like the way that I think I'm growing from that, but no, definitely not. I would have said no.
Mm-hmm. I'm a yes. I'm a little bit of a chaos agent. I do like to say yes to opportunity, and I also feel like that, you know, I'm learning a lot more about kind of the naivety that comes attached with that. Like, I was very naive to what actually it was going to be like to live abroad. So if I had no idea based on what I know now, if I had no idea, and I'm just thinking about myself as I am, my nature, like I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm gonna move to Rome, sight unseen, and work for, you know, this incredible organization, and travel around Europe as much as I can, and elsewhere. You know, like I'm gonna go around the world, and I think it was because I also just I've never had an opportunity like that before, and I really wanted to study abroad in undergrad and college. And I never did. And I feel like that was always kind of like, oh, shucks, I really should have done that. Like, I really should have just made that happen. So, like, knowing myself, I would have been like, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. Not having any clue that, like, maybe go check out the place. Maybe have an apartment figured out, not just an Airbnb landing pad. Like, maybe, like, I would have gone all gas, no brakes, for sure. And I feel like that's what makes us really compatible too. It's because I am that person that, you know, does that. I go head first, and you're like, have you considered a helmet?
Well, that makes me want to ask you, Brie, like now that you've done this, now that you went, I mean, granted you did it together, but like you went head first, gas on into this experience, and now you know 10 months later, like what this experience has been. Would you do it again? Is that just like a core part of your personality, or have you somehow changed?
Oh, I feel deeply changed.
You know, a conservative, you know. You're not gonna take any risks from here on out.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, kind of. I'm less of a risk, like I don't know. Here's what it feels like. It feels like, knowing what I know now, I would have been more practical. I would have been like, thank you so much for this job. Your expectation that I move to Europe within 2 to 6 weeks, to Rome, in 2 to 6 weeks is really not going to work for me. And here is what I need to make it work for me. I'm learning more about what I need to have the groundedness that I desire at this point in my life as a person who is getting more adjusted to just the world and the experience of living. Like, I'm 31. Like, I want to have, I want to have comfort, stability, groundedness, connectedness. I would have liked to had an apartment together. I would have liked to figure out what transit was going to be like in the neighborhood that I lived in. I would have liked to figure out, could I get a car sooner than maybe later? Like all of those things. And I would have liked to have my list of questions. And of course, I'm somebody that comes with a list of questions, but I would have liked to think about those a little bit longer. And so knowing what I know now, I probably still would have made the leap, but would have been a little bit more measured and would have probably prolonged the leap a little bit more.
Yeah. If I think back to the decision-making process in, what was that, I suppose November, before we got full details and we decided we would do it, I remember you were like, help me write this list. What is the list of questions I should ask? And we wrote one together. We were like, here's, I think, all of the things we should ask about. When do we need to start? How long can that be prolonged, et cetera, right? And you asked that, and you got pretty good answers from them on towards the things that we were concerned about. And then that night, you were like, Ryan, there is no world in which I don't take this job. And well, it's like, speaking of all gas, no brakes, like that was the experience. That is the way that it happened, right? And I think, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that the thing that's left out of that is, will you have enough peace throughout that process that you just said yes to do it, right? Because you can do it. You have done way harder things than this, but will it be peaceful? It's like a new word that I don't think was on your list back then. Peace or groundedness, any of that. I don't think. It's more about like excitement and achievement, and this is going to be such a growth opportunity, which all those things are true. I don't think, groundedness was like on the list.
Well, I feel like you have to have that in order to change your perspective. In order to really have a reality shift, you have to have some stability and like rootedness, and like, then you like put yourself into the unknown, and you have, discomfort, and discomfort creates, new discoveries. But unless you can have that consistency, the stability of like going back to your apartment that definitely has AC, or like definitely has, all the things you need to cook your favorite meal, your comfort meal, which you can't find at restaurants in your neighborhood. Like, that's all super important. And I didn't know that about myself before, is that I need that, those routines and that landing pad, and peace was definitely not a part of my vocabulary.
And for anyone who might be curious, the comfort food is tacos. It's absolutely tacos.
It makes sense. Yeah. Brian, I mean, I have to ask, because the way that she says, this is something I absolutely have to do. Like, this is not the thing. I mean, the way that sounds potentially to a listener is that you didn't really have a choice. If you wanted to stay with this woman, you're going, whether or not you like it. Is that how it felt at the time?
Not quite the existential, if I want to stay with her, this is what I'm doing, because I have such a deep trust with Brie that like, there's not a world in which we're not together moving forward that I can imagine, but physically together. Yeah. And it was jarring. That was tough, because that's not how I make decisions. I don't jump in head first almost ever. That doesn't mean I don't jump, but I don't jump in head first. And so when I'm suddenly on your timeline, in that moment, when I'm suddenly on your timeline of like, yep, it's decided. And I was like, what about this? What if my job doesn't work out? Then like I'm not sure what getting a new job is going to look like, and if I even have the right visa from her job, etc. And we actually never got the answers to those questions, because luckily we didn't need it. But that was jarring. Yeah, I had to process through quite a bit of anger, and we ended up talking about all those things, and you softened all of the way that you spoke about it from that moment forward. But I know that was your reality. Like, your reality was, I can't imagine not doing this. And I think the truth is, if it wasn't good for me, if this wasn't a risk worth taking for me, we would have talked about it. I would have talked to you about it. And I actually don't think you had already jumped. But I think the way that you process change is to act and speak as if you have, because that's the only way for Brie that she definitely will do it. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that mostly has served her throughout a lot of different decisions. But like, she's gonna speak as if like, oh, it's a done deal, it's already signed. I move next week. Yeah. And again, if there were actual big problems, I don't doubt that she would have prioritized us talking about it. I don't actually believe that this career was the top priority, must happen. But again, I know Brie well enough after 6 years of partnership. That's always how it's going to sound. that's always how it's going to sound when a big decision is in front of us. It's already a done deal.
I
cool.
signed.
You cool with that, Ryan?
Is there anything you want to add to that?
Ryan's right. I mean, my very good friend John O'Brien once told me about power posing, and he was like, you got to do it. You got to like go in front of the mirror and make like a powerful pose, and it'll make your whole day better. I think he listened to a NPR story about it and was telling me about it over text. You know, I thought about that while Ryan was describing kind of the way that I do that. I feel like I do semantic power posing. Like I do semantic posturing. Maybe it's like, you know, the form of manifestation where I'm like, no, this is going to be great and it's going to be amazing. And to me now, when I'm on the other side of that, it does feel like kind of that naivety. Like I feel like, you know, like I really, really want it to work out. And I want everything to be amazing. And it helps me build that confidence to really, you know, say it how I intend and want for it to turn out and act like that. Mm-hmm. And if I can act like that for a little, maybe it'll be it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it might be, I'll be a house of cards.
Well, I mean, if you had to describe, since we're almost out of time, if you had to describe how it feels right now, how does it feel right now?
It feels like I am in a part of my life that I am really, truly savoring. And I get to be in the moment and savor. And that wasn't a thing that I was aware of as a part of my process as a person before. Like, what does it mean to savor something? What does it mean to truly be here now? And I felt like when I woke up every day in Seattle and saw water or mountains in every direction that I looked in, I was like, this is a beautiful place to be. And I still didn't really have that concept of savoring it. So I feel like anywhere I go after this experience, I'll get to take that with me. And that feels like a treasure.
How about you, Ryan? How does it feel right now?
Pretty similar to what Brie said. For me, moving to Seattle from the East Coast of the States was my first adventure. That was the new place to set up shop where I don't know anybody and to sort of start from scratch. And so that itch was already scratched for me, right? It's cool to be in a totally different country with a different culture, but the starting over wasn't an urge for me. But what I'm learning here is that we could kind of do this anywhere. And that sounds maybe very entitled, but like, if you and I are here and if there's some amount of luck and context and privilege of like, we have a job where we can make enough money to do some things we would like to do.
We have the health.
It's not about the specifics. I think I would spend the rest of my life, if not for Brie and some of those strong pushes, trying to optimize down to the perfect thing Ryan likes the best. And, that is the restaurant that I like the best. And that is the place that I will go now, always. And it's not about that. Like, we could, if there was a need to, you and I could be in a different state in the U.S. rather than Washington and build that thing and savor that thing and just go a little more slowly through it. It doesn't have to be optimized. It doesn't have to be a narrative that makes sense to anybody, including myself. It could just be the next step in that narrative, and I don't have to know where it goes yet.
Mm-hmm. Love that. So do we want to leave it there, or is there any other thoughts you guys really want to share before we shut it down?
Gift your loved ones Italian lessons.
If you love Italy, start it now.
Start it young. Get it going. You won't regret it.
So true. I can't thank you guys enough for doing this. So 10 months in, you don't know exactly how long you'll be here, but maybe we'll have to check in again along the way. Whether or not it is when you return to Seattle someday, or if I catch you here in Rome next year, next October, when I'm here for the 2025 trip. Either way, thank you so much. It's so good to be with you guys today.
It's so lovely to be with you, Katie. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, and we'll leave it there. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell. Talk to you soon. Bye. Send us a note at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com and find detailed information about the upcoming 2025 Roman adventure at our website, thebittersweetlife.net.